welcome Paul, and thank you very much for agreeing to come and open our river this morning. The way you're dressed, you were the first person to do so by actually getting into the river. Alex Salmon couldn't even get in the boat last year.
I don't be going too far into the river.
But he did get a 12-year-old boy to go in his place. So, Paul, we're looking forward to watching this morning. Anyway, Lord Lieutenant Murdo Fraser, MSP, ladies and gentlemen, welcome indeed to this formal opening of the 2015 season.
Words and give the blessing.
Welcome, stalwart sportsman. It certainly beats the hell out of the House of Brewer January sale being here. I see your old champion at the bit to open the 2015 season, so I'll be quite brief, between 40 and 45 minutes, if that's all right with you. It's a great privilege to be invited to participate in this ceremony, especially as an Englishman. The Tay is the mightiest of the Scottish streams, but it's always been popular with intruders. At the Battle of Lunkety nearby, you'll recall, a sneaking barefoot Viking once stepped on a thistle and thereby alerted the entire Scottish army, leading to a massacre that gave Red Gorton its name and the adoption of the thistle as the national emblem of this nation. I fondly like to imagine that I was invited along today for my legendary angling prowess, but I have to admit that the last two piscatorial awards I've won have been Brian Fratel's Cup for the largest gudgeon and the Upper Dryburgh Trophy for most effort and least success by a rod in the entire 2014 season. I do not wish to spoil opening day by waxing political, but as we all know, the gorgeous Atlantic salmon is these days thoroughly embattled, if not actually an endangered species. I do not need to enumerate the threats it faces from seals, trawlers, global warming and interceptory mixed stock netting. But last year the overall Scottish rod catch was down from a 5-year average of 84,500 fish to less than 50,000, and the Tay was down some 30% on the same basis. We all pray this is a blip, an anomaly, but if not, then Salmo Salar is truly in the most profound trouble. I do not know to what extent the Scottish Wild Fisheries Review is going to change that game, carcass tagging, rod licences, Sunday fishing, but the salmon needs all the help it can get. The fish itself is doing its best. Given a little conservation and lots of luck, it will continue to assert itself like a thistle muscling up through tarmac. But it needs our support, as does the rural economy that benefits from these visits. But enough of preaching to the converted. We're here to celebrate the mighty Springer, once described by novelist Neil Gunn as fresh run, blue-green and silver bright, of all shapes surely the most perfect in creation. Amen to that. If God did make a finer fish, he must have decided to keep it for himself. And we're here to salute the glorious sport of angling. No man can account for its subtle magic, but the closest I've ever heard to a comprehensive angling philosophy was the Jamaican proverb, every day good for fishing, but not every day good for catching fish. And indeed, everyone goes fishing in his or her particular way, and we each draw a slightly different form of emotional refreshment from the experience. And as I get older, I find the context within which the sport happens is increasingly important, especially the company one keeps. During my 30 years as a fishing correspondent, I've come across any number of wise guys, swamis, gurus, self-appointed experts, triple spey casting supremos, feather-fixing theorists and assorted piscatorial specialists who strut around like some illegitimate love child of Dame Juliana Berners and Ernest Hemingway, and I've developed an inclination to avoid them. After all, an expert is merely a man who knows 1,000 different ways of making love but can never find himself a woman. One of my favourite waterside companions was Jim Fletcher of Merton, another grand angler now with God, who was boatman on Tweed for many decades and still, when I knew him, wore chest waders made of canvas. We were sitting in a hut one spring when a blue bottle crash dived into his dram. And Jim whipped out a pair of pliers, held up the offending insect, and glaring into its complex eye, he growled, "Now, you spit that out, you bugger!" And so, without further ado, I have great pleasure in pouring the libation of this golden water of life into the silvery waters of the Tay at Stanley, and declaring the salmon season here well and truly open. Let us now sally forth in good fellowship with Temple Dog and Temple Fork, with Sage and Kynop, Skagit, Saraceni, Sunray and Single Malt. And I hope everyone here today will open their account with some hefty silver. And later in the year, when the weather is perhaps more clement, may the gross be with you.
Let's go.